In the summer of my first grade, we got a TV set. It was a black and white TV set. And at that time, my father put an antenna on the top of the house. We lived in Brooklyn, pointed it towards the Empire State Building. And we got a plethora of channels. 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. There was no remote control. Well, wait a minute. I was the remote control. Turn to channel 5. Okay. One of the early programs, I remember, I was mid-grammar school. At night, at least once a week, Archbishop Fulton Sheen would be televised and preach on television. And the television made him look enormous, made him look like a giant. If you ever met Fulton Sheen, he wasn't tall. But he was a marvelous speaker. And he would wear his cassock and collar, and he would have a cape. And he would march back and forth across the stage, and his cape would flow around. And he had a wonderful, beautiful handwriting. He had at least 2 chalkboards where he would write the different concepts of his sermon that day. But before he started to write, at the top of the chalkboard, he would always write JMJ. Well, I was in Catholic school, so I knew what that meant. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. The Holy Family. Every time he wrote something, he would write at the top, JMJ. And in my school, we would do similar, right at the top of all our papers, JMJ, or we would make a little plus sign or a cross. Always did that. The Holy Family. And we have the Holy Family in this creche today. These, though, are wooden sculpted figures. Mary's praying, Joseph is very attentive, and the innocent, beaming baby is there in the manger. These members of the Holy Family, though, are not just figures frozen in time. These were real people who struggled and worked and suffered. They are the patrons of every family in every circumstance. They knew the kinds of setbacks, disappointments, and challenges every family faces. They are the patrons of outcasts. They were a family that no one had room for. They were forced to run for their lives, fleeing into Egypt to escape the execution from a jealous king. They are the patrons of anyone forced to leave his or her home and native land. Think of all the migrants, the refugees around the world, in our own country. Think of all the homeless that we have here in our own apparently wealthy country. They are the patrons of parents who live with fear and anxiety. To Mary, the angel said, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid." She was unmarried and pregnant in a world that stoned unmarried and pregnant women. Do not be afraid. And she had much to fear. And then she had to travel to Bethlehem and then hear the prophecy of Simeon, "A sword shall pierce your heart." She had the flight into Egypt. And remember, Jesus went missing when he was 12 years old. And if anyone had to ever look for a missing child, you know the anguish that is. She watched as he stood trial, suffered, and died. And Joseph, the angel said, "Do not be afraid. Take Mary into your home as your wife." These are people who lived with uncertainty. That was their life. The family stands beside every mother and father who wonder what God has planned. How will they get through the next day, the next week, the next month? To them, the Holy Family says, do not be afraid. Know that you are not alone. They are the patrons of all the unexpected. Mary and Joseph had very different plans in their lives when they were betrothed. Plans that didn't include visits from angels, birth in a stable, flight into Egypt, and a son executed. They didn't see this in their story this way. God had a different story to tell. It starts with, do not be afraid. And Mary says, let it be done. And ends with resurrection. The Holy Family today are advocates of every family. They are models of faith, hope, and trust. Their journey was not easy, and that is true for all of us. So stop by this creche, or the one you may have at home, and think of what it contains. It is the greatest story ever told. May we work every day in this new year to make that story part of our own. Amen.
So before I do the announcements, I just wanted to present a quilt of valor to our own Deacon Paul here. The quilt is an expression of our gratitude, meant to thank as well as to comfort you. We honor you for leaving all you hold dear to serve, whether in time of crisis or in time of peace, in your case. Deacon Paul spent his time at, it's right north of Chicago, Great Lakes Naval Station, which is like a vacation. This quilt of valor unequivocally says thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and valor in balancing the books of the Navy out there. Deacon Paul is an accountant. And so on behalf of the Quilts of Valor Foundation, we thank you for allowing us to recognize you. And we thank everyone for joining us here.
Thank you very much. And by the way, there were no Russian submarines that attacked while I was there. Lake Michigan was safe.
There you go. If you know someone who served and would like a quilt, you can speak to us. These are not mass-produced quilts. These are handmade quilts. And Deacon Paul, in your case, this was made for you by Marla Silver-Nagel, our Director of Religious Ed. So thank you, Marla.